Yup, this is the game I'm covering after 10 months with no content. That's something Ubisoft and I have in common. We both really know what our audiences want.
Our goal is to make a best-in-class shooter for you, the players, to compete
and have fun with your friends. It's fast-paced firefights meets punk rock mosh pit.
We're proud to introduce our new game,
Tom Clancy's XDefiant.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
That was the original pitch for Ubisoft's XDefiant, a Call of Duty-inspired free-to-play live service. And if that combination of words caused your internal alarm bells to ring, don't worry, that's a totally normal response. As if it wasn't chasing enough trends, this game was also going to have hero shooter abilities, and to try and justify this concept, it looked like Ubisoft smashed a bunch of their IPs together with no regard to how well they fit, and then slapped Tom Clancy's name on it. Sure, let's throw Splinter Cell in there too, it's not like you can dance on its grave any harder. This reveal did not go over well, creating a firestorm of mockery and rejection. If you make your way over to that reveal trailer and check the comments, you can even find yours truly expressing a similar viewpoint, because seriously, who asked for this? Who wanted yet another free-to-play live service, especially from a publisher now known more for their formulaic mediocrity? I sure as hell didn't, and like many others who forced themselves through this reveal, I wrote off Call of Ubi with no intention to ever give it another look. A couple years went by without XDefiant ever being mentioned, so long that I had completely forgotten it was even a thing. But eventually, some people were able to try the game out via internal testing and closed betas, and pretty much everyone came out of those sessions saying some really weird stuff. Like, that the game was fun? Perhaps even good?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
That positive word of mouth shifted expectations enough to put XDefiant back on my radar. I at least had to give it a shot myself, which I did during the game's first open beta, and when that beta was over, I really wanted to play more. And when the game did finally launch, I sorta became hooked on it. Trust me, looking back at that original trailer, I never in a million years would have expected that to happen. It hurts to give modern Ubisoft credit for pretty much anything, but I'm gonna be honest, and truthfully, I had a really good time playing XDefiant. Sure, it had its issues, but it captured a kind of multiplayer hook that I hadn't felt in several years. I used to play Call of Duty obsessively. From COD 4 onward, I was frequently playing online with friends until the wee hours of the morning, putting hundreds of hours into each new game. But as the quality of those games steadily fell off, I played less and less until I became largely apathetic to the franchise. But XDefiant, of all things, brought me back to those glory days, coming together more than well enough to instill a one more match mentality that I don't often feel now. The boots-on-the-ground gunplay was rock solid, the weapons felt satisfying to shoot, the faction abilities weren't too overbearing, with some pre-patch exceptions, and the maps were fun to play, minus some annoying checkpoints and bad spawning. And as an added cherry on top, no skill-based matchmaking, in casual playlists anyway. XDefiant put together lobbies based on connection first, and then balanced teams once the lobby was full, creating more natural variety in how matches played out. Sometimes it was a stomping, sometimes I got stomped, sometimes it was a hard-fought tug-of-war until the final seconds. I never knew quite what I was going to get because an algorithm wasn't artificially determining how much fun I should be having. I unlocked every weapon and character the game had to offer, I convinced some of my friends to play it with me, even if a couple had to be dragged in kicking and screaming, I logged on daily to get challenges done, I even bought and completed every battle pass that came out, and I almost never do that. Given who the publisher is, I did feel a bit of ick buying these, but I put so much time into XDefiant that I felt my patronage had been more than earned. I realize that it sounds like I'm glazing this game pretty hard, making it sound like some 10 out of 10 masterpiece, but that wasn't the case at all. It chased every trend in the book. I seriously think that Ubisoft original brand has to be an inside joke. There wasn't a ton of content at launch. Menus were haphazardly designed and convoluted to navigate, and some matches were plagued by connection problems that would result in you getting shot around corners or have your bullets behaving more like paintballs than lethal projectiles. By most metrics, XDefiant was a derivative, by-the-books, free-to-play FPS that blended into the crowd. But for me, its gameplay was more than competent enough to hold my attention. As far as I'm concerned, XDefiant, while absolutely uninspired, was one of the most enjoyable games Ubisoft had made in quite some time. So naturally, Ubi took the game out behind the woodshed and put it out of its misery after only 1 year. Unfortunately, back in December 2024, Ubisoft announced that XDefiant would be going offline. And if you're watching this video after June 3rd, 2025, it's already dead. When the announcement of this impending shutdown came, I was bummed, sure. I've made it pretty clear that I liked the game, but I also can't say I was all that surprised. XDefiant had an uphill battle from the moment it was announced, and some other factors pretty much ensured that its fate was inevitable. What were those factors, you may ask? Well, in this post-mortem, I'll be going over what I believe are the big reasons XDefiant ultimately failed. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Wise words to live by, and words that the marketing team in charge of announcing this game had obviously never heard of. I alluded to it earlier, but the reveal of XDefiant turned so many people off right away. Not only was it chasing the live service trend that plenty were already sick of by now, and seemed to be aping every worn-out idea from its competition, it also tried so hard to be cool and hip, giving off this desperate, how do you do, fellow kids vibe. Using a phrase like punk rock mosh pit to describe something with Tom Clancy's name on it, a game where echelon agents and cleaners from the Division are running around, was shockingly tone-deaf. It was like this entire pitch was put together from a Mad Lib. I'd almost bet money that the only reason this game is called XDefiant in the first place was because of this dumb emoji logo that somebody thought was really clever. These days, any new title from Ubisoft is gonna have skepticism attached to it. They just don't have much in the way of goodwill anymore. But to a lot of us, this unveiling came off as cringe, lazy, and forgettable. XDefiant kind of dropped off the map for a while after the negative reception this reveal got, and when it resurfaced, they did make an effort to rebrand. The whole punk rock aesthetic was quietly pushed aside, replaced with a more generic military shooter theme. That original attitude is still present in some of the customization and character dialogue, and yes, some of the lines the operators say are as lame as you'd think.
Cheer up, not every human life is without purpose or reward. Ha ha. Was that laugh convincing?
But at least it was no longer at the forefront, making it easier to take the game seriously. The Tom Clancy name was also removed from the title, and since they were no longer restricted to that specific brand, some factions were reworked to fit with other Ubi franchises, like Far Cry and Watch Dogs. It showed they were at least trying to listen to feedback, but for a lot of people, the damage was already done. And besides, shifting your game's identity from Technicolor Vomit to standard COD clone probably isn't going to turn many heads either. There were quite a few times where XDefiant was afforded a perfect chance to bask in the spotlight, to stand out from its competition and bring players in, but whether due to bad luck, incompetence, or some combination of both, it squandered every one of these opportunities. Let's go back to those closed betas, where the positive word of mouth started. Given how low our expectations for the game were, hearing that optimistic consensus raised many an eyebrow. Shortly after that, in June 2023, XDefiant had an open beta that anyone could try, and most people, including myself, also came away feeling good about it. There was some stuff to iron out, sure, but hey, that's what betas are for, and the meat of the experience more or less felt complete. At the time, XDefiant didn't have a concrete release date, but it was slated for Q3 of 2023, meaning we'd all get to play the full game in just a few short months. The right amount of time to let those who tried out the beta miss being able to play it, keep all of that good buzz going, and build some hype for its soon-to-be launch. So then a month went by, and then another, and another, and then New Year's came and went, and then several more months passed, and XDefiant still hadn't launched. It would finally come out in May 2024, an entire year after the beta, and by that point, whatever momentum the game had built up back then was long gone, essentially forcing it to start from scratch. Something that was even more baffling is that there was no communication about this delay. No announcement, no updates, the dev team more or less fell off the face of the earth, and if they weren't going to talk about their game, no one else was going to either. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, and I'm not saying they should have rushed the game out if they didn't feel it was ready, but keeping everyone in the dark about it only hurt XDefiant in the long run. People weren't getting more excited, they wondered what the hell was going on. You know what makes this extended absence even more unfortunate? 2023 was the year the Modern Warfare 3 reboot sequel thing came out. You know, that glorified DLC that quickly became the lowest rated Call of Duty in the history of the franchise? Imagine if there was an alternative of some kind people could have pointed toward, perhaps something with a low barrier to entry because it's free to play. Their biggest inspiration and competition dropped the ball harder than it ever had, and XDefiant wasn't anywhere on the court to catch the rebound. And then, as if to add insult to injury, when the game did come out in 2024, it only got a handful of months to itself before it was put up against Black Ops 6, which was not only very well received at launch, but was also the first Call of Duty to drop on Game Pass day one. When that happened, most of XDefiant's already shrinking player base quietly moved on, and so did I. Black Ops 6 turned out to be pretty fun. It had more content, more players, and, well, sure, it wasn't technically free to play since Game Pass is a paid subscription. Most of us basically consider it free given its overall value. The writing was pretty much on the wall at this point, and sure enough, just over a month later, it was announced that XDefiant's days were officially numbered. But in one final instance of poor timing, it was around this same time that community opinion toward Black Ops 6 started to shift. Activision had started shoving in all their overbearing monetization, accusations of AI-generated slot being added in were in full swing, and a steady stream of patches either made changes players didn't like, or outright broke shit that had worked fine before. If only there was an alternative of some kind people could have pointed toward. But there's no sense pointing at a corpse, so let's chalk that up to one more opportunity wasted. I know, monetization is a worn-out topic, but the reality is, if executives don't see their latest live service quickly earning all of the revenue, they have no incentive to keep it going. Since XDefiant costs nothing to play, it had leeway to ask players to spend money, employing the familiar model of seasonal battle passes and a rotating storefront of cosmetics. Exactly what you'd expect. Now, compared to many other games, I think the Battle Pass here was actually pretty fair in terms of how long it took to get through. Logging on daily to get challenges done, and some extended sessions with friends, saw me finishing each pass within 2 weeks or so, well ahead of the cutoff date. And since I was putting in the time anyway, I figured XDefiant earned my $10. Whether the rewards unlocked were worth it are a question of personal taste, and while I think most of them were pretty throwaway, I'd usually find a couple skins or MVP outros to throw on my operators. Plus, completing each battle pass ensured I'd have enough premium currency for the next one, letting me recycle my $10 over and over again. But that's not where the real profits are. No, it's clear Ubisoft expected most of their earnings to come from the cosmetic store, which I think was a gross miscalculation. As usual, the prices for these skins were outrageous. I know these prices have been standardized, but why anyone would spend $15 or $20 on a single skin, no matter how neat they think it looks, will never make sense to me. As an example, can you see why this weapon camo costs $10, the same as an entire battle pass? Well, it's because of those 3 little green dots they put on the gun. You know, like the goggles. Sure, Ubisoft, just keep defiling Splinter Cell's memory. We're used to it by now. But here's where the bigger problem lies. In a game like, say, Marvel Rivals, wacky cosmetics makes sense. Superheroes already wear outlandish outfits, plus they have decades of stories and alternate timelines to pull countless variations from. It all just fits. In comparison, XDefiant is more grounded in that it's just a bunch of normal people shooting each other. And since everyone is humanoid, there's only so far you can go with the craziness of cosmetic designs. But on top of that, given the franchises all of these factions are pulled from, almost every costume you throw on someone is gonna look out of place. In all honesty, most of the skins they tried to sell looked more stupid and weren't worth buying anyway, but even the few here that someone might think are cool still don't mesh well. My prediction years ago that you can't have a spy running around in bright pink sneaky pants turned out to be shockingly accurate because no one wanted to buy this stuff. Maybe if they had conceived XDefiant as its own original universe, or made the skins way cheaper to incentivize frequent spending, things may have turned out different, but alas, no money means no servers. The internet these days can be incredibly divisive, but if there's one truth that everyone has settled on, it's that Ubisoft's launcher is the fucking worst. This meme I threw together 8 years ago, back when this abomination was called Uplay, is somehow still relevant even after all this time. If you wanted to play XDefiant on PC, you were stuck using the now rebranded Ubisoft Connect. Tons of companies have their own launchers, and on paper, that makes sense. They own the ecosystem, and they don't have to split the profits with anyone. But that doesn't really matter when your oh-so-exclusive platform has a reputation for being a broken nightmare. Each time I had to reveal to a friend of mine that they needed to use Ubisoft Connect to play XDefiant, every single one of them responded with an irritated groan. When I was forced to run this launcher every day, I found that the store page, that place where Ubisoft wants you to give them money, was straight up broken 90% of the time. Nothing says trust me with your credit card info quite like a blank screen and a broken URL. In fairness though, that didn't get in the way of playing XDefiant itself. But this disk error I got on 4 separate occasions sure as hell did. I'm not exactly sure how to explain it, because it occurred at random, but this error essentially put the game in a limbo state where it's installed, but it thinks it isn't, so you can't launch it. And if you try uninstalling it to fix the issue, you can't reinstall, because it still thinks that it is installed, even though it isn't. I don't know, man. In order to fix this issue, I'd have to restart my PC and reinstall the game in order to play again. Feel free to explain the technical details of what the hell was going on here, because this only ever happens with this launcher, and it was incredibly annoying. But even tossing aside what a disaster Ubisoft Connect is, here's what I truly don't understand. You put out a live service, something that needs a consistent, sizable player base to sell battle passes and cosmetics to, and you don't put it on Steam, the largest PC gaming platform in the world? Unless you're Fortnite or some anime gotcha MMO, there's no reason at all to not make your free-to-play shooter as widely available as you can. Ubisoft already sells their games on Steam. They just require you to also download Ubisoft Connect to play them, so why not do the same for XDefiant? Sure, you'd have to cut Valve in on a percentage of that sweet microtransaction money, but isn't that worth having access to a vastly larger consumer base? I'm not saying it would have guaranteed success, but it definitely would have increased the odds. Go to where your customers are. Don't expect them to come running to you. Also, maybe fix your dogshit launcher. So yeah, unfortunately, XDefiant has been added to the ever-expanding graveyard of failed live services. And while my jaded outlook makes it hard to care about most of them, I think this one deserved better. It was derivative as hell, and effectively reinforced that Ubisoft has no idea what it's doing with its fan-favorite IPs. And it's easy to feel a sense of satisfaction watching what this company has become crash and burn. But the team behind XDefiant did a damn fine job making a shooter that was a blast to play, and I think that should be acknowledged. I don't know. In a just world, the game would be allowed to exist, supporting a niche community who enjoy playing it, but that's not how things work. Maybe some dedicated fans will find a way to get private servers up and running in the future, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that. Ubisoft is literally in court right now arguing we don't own the games we purchase, so I'm guessing any attempt to bring this one back would be hit with a cease and desist in record time. Regardless of that, XDefiant was a solid shooter that couldn't seem to catch a break, and while many people will forget about it once it's gone, I'll always appreciate the good times it provided me. Did you try XDefiant before it was shut down? Do you even care that it's gone? Share your thoughts on all that down below. I wonder how many people read this video's title and commented, "No it didn't," without even watching it. I bet there's a few. Give the video a like or dislike, and consider subscribing in the hopes I develop some type of upload schedule. Thank you for listening. And Ubisoft Connect still sucks.